Welcome back to TMI with Terrell and Martha. It is so great to be here. We want you to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, and we look forward to you being a part of the discussion. Terrell, every now and then we like to get together and talk about what we're reading.
Yes, we thought we'd do that today.
And what people should do that, so we'll do that today.
Yeah. So why don't you tell me what you're reading?
So I'm reading 3 books right now. I am reading Mark Richt's new book, and you know what? I've forgotten the title of it. I shouldn't have, but he has a new book out about his journey with Parkinson's, and of course, he's the former University of Georgia football head coach. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame.
He's got Parkinson's?
He's got Parkinson's disease. Mark Richt.
Okay, Mark Richt.
Mark Richt, not Kirby Smart. Mark Richt. And he's the former coach at the University of Georgia. And so I'm reading that, which it's a great uplifting story. I mean, he's a very faithful person, and that's a tough disease. And so he's doing really, really well.
I'm very, very, very familiar with it.
I'm reading Charlie Kirk's last book called Stop in the Name of God, which is about his journey. He wrote and finished this book before his death in September, and it's about his journey to observe the Sabbath. And this is about like lowering stress in your life, which I was reading this before my heart attack, which we talked about in the last episode. But what he does is that he takes a Sabbath day from Friday night to Saturday night, no cell phones, no communication, nothing but family time, or he took. And he was writing about why, how that changed his life. And got him reset, that there wasn't anybody that needed to get in contact with him that couldn't do without him for 24 hours.
Right. That's amazing.
That's the way we used to live our lives.
Well, I mean, we were always off the grid.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you had a phone call to make, you had to arrange it ahead of time. And then you had to go home and you had to stand next to the phone.
Yeah.
And wait for it to ring.
Right.
And then you needed to get the phone and walk into the cabinet or the closet, the pantry in the kitchen, and close the door, see if you wanted privacy.
Yes. I never had privacy. I just had one of those long cords that I just walked around with. But you used to, it wasn't unusual for family members to not talk for a week or for you waited till the rates went down.
Yeah.
And look, I talk to my daughter and my sons several times a week. My daughter more than my sons. That's just the nature of a girl versus a boy.
Moms and daughters.
But I don't know if it's healthy. I don't know if we shouldn't allow, a little more free ranging even with our adult children, because they need to handle their own problems. And so I'm reading Stop in the Name of God, and then I'm reading Unfettered, and that is the story of John Fetterman, who is the kind of rogue United States Senator from Pennsylvania. He's the guy that wears hoodies, and he has been very open about his journey with depression.
Wow.
Because while he was running for the United States Senate in, I think, 22, he had a stroke. And in the recovery of that stroke, he had a lot of difficulty with depression.
Right.
And then right after he was sworn in as United States Senator, he was actually hospitalized at Walter Reed Medical Center because his depression got so serious.
So intense.
Yes. Yeah. And so he's written this book about that story, about that. So those are the things I'm reading right now.
Well, I think those are very pertinent for you in your life
right
Isn't
now. Isn't it weird how that happens?
How did that happen? And, I think it's they're all 3 going to play into how you shift your lifestyle a little bit.
Yes.
Because, one of the things with, the things you're exposing yourself to through reading or audiobooks or however you're doing it, those things can affect you physically, what you're listening to. And I think it's great to hear other people's stories so that, like, with your situation, you feeling a lot of changes coming, right? And heart attacks, people that survive heart attacks, whether they damage the heart or not, tend to have to deal with depression at one point or another around that. Because that's just how the body works. When you think of the word depression, that's not just someone, sitting on the edge of a cliff ready to jump off kind of thing, or, or angry at the world. That's literally a depressed situation where your body and your functions are not at their normal level. That is when you're depressed. So you will be physically depressed for a little while you're healing from this situation. And it could tend to lead to some mental and emotional depression. They kind of follow each other, or based on your personalities, right? All of us have different personality, different brain chemicals, which I'll talk about in a minute too, which will determine whether you actually fall off that cliff.
Well, you
or
know,
don't.
especially the Charlie Kirk book, Stop in the Name of God. I was thinking while I was reading the book, I was thinking about, especially my children who have children.
Right.
And there is so much noise and communication in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Nonstop.
all of the teachers have Snapchat groups or WhatsApp groups, and they get, dozens of messages from that they have to deal with relating to their children every day. And it's just not realistic. And granted, I think you need to communicate with the people in your lives, and you need to know what's going on with know what's going on with people. I know I'm not supposed to cross my legs, but I'm going to for a minute. Yeah. So
I caught her.
I know she caught me. But there are so many things, and I think there's too much communication.
No, you're absolutely right.
that if you have got like hundreds of messages you can't get to every day. For me, it's more email than it is text messages, because I literally get hundreds of emails every day.
Yeah.
And it is an ongoing practice with me to try to unsubscribe from things that I don't know how I got on these lists.
That's my first 20 minutes of my day. Coffee, unsubscribe.
Yes.
I don't even know. I think they sell your information and you end up on somebody else's.
So we have to, I think that what I like about the Stop in the Name of God book is that I'm thinking about those kinds of things, what I can do without. And it was just like today, I was thinking about, we're going to go visit my grandchildren this weekend. It's Pinewood Derby weekend. And my oldest son also lives up there. And, I think that, I haven't talked to them in a few days. But then I said to myself, I made a conscious decision, you know what? I'm seeing them this weekend.
Right.
I don't need to text them. I don't need to, I don't
Dive
need to
in.
call them. They don't need to know what I'm doing every minute of every day. And that we need to let go a little bit more, and it's releasing me from a lot of, stress. Right. And then, in my faith world, I read, a devotional every day from something called YouVersion. It's a Bible app. Mm-hmm. And then I also have been doing the Hallow Challenge, which they're doing, which is a prayer challenge they're doing for Lent that I'm doing. But one thing I always do, and I bought this book, I bought 4 of these and sent these to my children this week, actually, because, when you have a near-death experience, you think about, I don't talk to my kids about faith enough or something, or what I think about things. And something I learned in my 30s was that if you want to get back on track with the Bible, that a great way to do it is to read Proverbs. Mm-hmm. And so Proverbs has 31 chapters. Right. It's all great life lessons about family.
You can apply it anywhere.
Wives and being a good wife, being a good husband, running a business. All that stuff is in Proverbs. All that practical stuff is in Proverbs. And so I bought a Proverbs Bible study and sent it to each of my kids with a little note at the end. I know that all of you are in different places in your faith than I am, but this has been really helpful to me. And if you decide you don't want to do this, then give it to someone who you think might want to do it.
Yeah, and that was a no pressure gift. That was like, I'm doing this for me.
Yes.
In hopes that you will receive it.
That you will learn what I learned. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't, then that's your world and you can do whatever you wish,
because
which
everybody's different about it.
Yeah.
My oldest son has a real complicated relationship with organized religion. And my daughter works for a church, which I don't think has been that helpful for her faith, working for a big church.
Yeah.
But then my ones with children, one goes pretty often, the other one doesn't go as much. And, we're boomers. We like to go to church. Okay. I like to physically go to church, my week goes better if I do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's your feel good zone.
That's right. It just goes better. It just does. And so, but I'm trying to be more open and sharing of those experiences and less judgmental. If they don't take the same choice that I did.
Look, that is the way to be.
Really hard.
I know. Well, it's kind of a thing, that's how it's always been throughout time. If you look at any conflict in the world, it's usually somewhere around religious beliefs and zealous beliefs
Yeah.
in certain forms, right? And it ends up causing conflict, which is where your oldest son may have some problems with organized religion.
Yep.
I've been there. I'm in a situation where I have no problems with any religion. I know them all. I have researched and read, but I am and was raised a Southern Baptist, and White Oak Baptist Church in Greenville, South Carolina. Went on all the trips, and so I have my foundation. But I am what I would say, I walk with God on a daily basis. My feel good place is with my animals.
Yes.
So, and then when I am at the spa, helping others to feel good, that is also another connection point I have with spirit, with God and his work, and so it's my mission. So I kind of live my mission on a daily basis to the best of my ability through my actions, words, and thoughts and deeds. I did go to church, growing up younger, but I have found, through various different reasons, just that, not that I have a problem with church, and I have been to several churches here with friends at different times, but that's not my comfort zone, my happy place. So I have kind of a different path there. But I have always found that if you can't respect somebody else's views and thoughts, then you can't do God's work, because they're going to shut their doors to you, and especially if they feel judged by you. And my children have really helped me along, just like yours have, probably.
Yes.
We both have children that are in, different stages and decades of life, and they have really taught me a lot. My mother is back in church and goes to church fairly regularly with her boyfriend in Hiawassee, and loves the friendship and the community that it provides. And I think church is so good relative to providing surround and support and community, which is, I'm sure you find that warmth in that community with like-minded individuals. And
So, what are you reading?
so, I am reading a book that my friend, who is going to be a guest on our show, she is very excited to come be in our show. I think in April, she wants to line up for April. And her name is Vicki Sims, and she owns our local physical therapy
Group. Yes.
Gainesville Physical Therapy. She's very well known. She
Yes.
had people flying in from all over the world, and you'll know more about her when she comes on. But anyway,
I know her very well.
yes, she does a
Yes.
lot with the SI joint. So she's got a whole book on that. We'll talk about that during the show. But she recommended a book the other day. I went to her house. Every few years, she does this really neat gathering where you go and you do vision boarding, right? Where you you cut out your pictures and your hopes, your wishes, your dreams, and you create vision boards for the year. So I went and met a wonderful group of ladies, and we had, tea and food, and we made vision boards or vision cards where you put some of your aspiration and hopes and, self-motivation tools, right? And while I was with her, she said, I am reading a book called Dose, DOSE. Look it up. It's by, I'm having the same problem as you, Terry somebody. Sorry about that. We just kind of on the
Well,
fly.
the book is called Dose.
Yeah, it's called Dose, DOSE, in big letters. It's for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So it's about the chemicals of the brain and how each category. So I'm on O, but the dopamine part was fascinating. And we have talked a little bit about, trying to unplug, get off the grid and kind of unplug. And part of his book was going over for us the understanding that TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all these people with social media already know how to manipulate the brain's
There
dopamine.
is a trial going on right now about that.
So
Yes.
that can be manipulated through marketing techniques, the dopamine hit. So they have discovered, and there's science proof this is out there. So check yourself after this show. Of course, watch this show. This show is not hurting you, but it's the short videos, and it's the scrolling of those short videos, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, even our shorts. If you're in there for more than 5 minutes rolling through shorts, stop it. But what happens is that the dopamine spikes get really high. And then what happens is when you get off the social media, then the dopamine drops like drastically, which then puts you into a kind of an addiction roller coaster, so that you end up picking your phone back up. So one of the checks on that one is when you're watching a show or when you're talking to somebody or you're in a conversation or somewhere, do you find yourself reaching for your phone and scrolling through your phone? Right? So that's the check. Number one, I was like, possibly. So can you watch a TV show without scrolling on your phone during the commercials? I failed that category.
Yes.
Big time. So they kind of gave you certain checks and balances for you to check yourself.
Well, and you make this
I was
justification like, oh, I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
I'm playing a game while I'm watching the show.
Mhm.
And that's good for your brain. They sell you these games as if they're good for your brain. And everybody our age is terrified of,
Brain
Alzheimer's
fun.
or
Yes,
losing your memory or whatever it is.
Cognitive decline.
That cognitive decline, yes. And so so it's funny. I did, as part of what I'm doing right now is I'm streamlining some stuff.
Mhm.
Like I've always had a separate bank account that's mine, and then everything else is ours,
Right.
or mine. No, anyway,
Yeah.
you know how that goes.
What's yours is
But I
yours, what's mine is
decided I
yours.
closed that one that I just had for me because it's one less thing to take care of, and I just put it all together,
Yep.
and I made sure. But it is, I know about the phone thing, and my husband, I got to tell you, Lynn Zoller is like a 13-year-old boy when it comes to scrolling on his
Oh
phone.
my God.
And he was
It's-
late to the party for smartphones. I mean, it's probably only been about 6 years he's had a smartphone at the most, and he is totally sucked into it. I mean,
My husband,
it
the
is
same. And I hope he's
I'm just
listening to
looking
this
at these
show.
shorts. I'm just
Mhm.
looking at these
Talking to
shorts,
you.
and and then he gets in the clickbait,
Yeah.
and
No.
and it's just a problem. And I think I'm pretty good at not getting sucked in, but I mean, we
not.
were in between
I
taping
was not.
shows, and I went and checked my text messages. I went and
Mhm.
looked at this. I wanted to do, because you want to be caught up at every last minute. To our other point, you don't have to be caught up every last minute.
No.
You're
We're
caught
not
up.
used to that.
Just being here, we're
Yeah.
caught up.
Yeah, but it is a legit brain chemical
Yes,
thing
it draws you to it.
that draws you to it
It's
and
why
then drives your behaviors.
Well, they're doing these short rom-coms now because people can't sit down and watch an hour and 30-minute movie anymore.
Tika. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I have a friend. She
Yeah.
says she can't watch a whole movie because it's too much of a commitment.
And really, like
I'm sorry, I'm
rom-coms
outing.
are like an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's
you know,
not that
so
bad.
it's not even a lot.
No.
We sat down. I had the grandkids a few weeks ago, and we sat down and watched The Sound of Music, which is a really long
Oh,
movie.
it is a long.
And so we got through the intermission and before they had to go, and
Right.
we're going to watch the rest of it the next time they come. But I met my granddaughter at the new Ink Museum. They have
Right.
the new one there she was there for a field trip. And we were sitting there having lunch, after we'd gone through the Ink Museum. And she goes, "You know what, Oma? None of my friends had heard of The Sound of Music." I said, "Well, it's probably because it's a really long movie, and it's
Nobody
a really
wants to
old
sit through
movie."
that. Yeah.
But she goes, "I liked it. It's storytelling.
Yes.
It's that kind of thing. But we've gotten to where it's just bang, 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 and it's an hour long, or it's 30 minutes, or
Right.
it's 22 minutes, or whatever it is, or it's 2.5 minutes."
Yeah,
and it just
that's the key.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There is the specific. But you know what? The interesting.
So that's just on the D. You've learned
That-
all of that.
that's
Wow.
just D. We haven't even
Okay.
got to the rest of it, which we'll have to kind of move through those a little
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
But with that too, what I was going to say is they have actual scientific proof that there's a difference in what happens to your brain when you're watching TV versus when you're scrolling on the phone.
Yeah.
And it is literally addictive. And there's an actual lawsuit out there where someone is suing
Yep.
because of the addiction to the phone. Now, come on, people, take a little responsibility here.
Yep.
I mean, I
Yeah.
am not, I mean,
They had Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook
Yes.
and Instagram. He had to testify
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago.
yes.
I think what's so crazy though is that I do think what I try to do again with my grandkids
Right.
is not have everybody on individual screens. Like if we, we keep them pretty busy during the day,
Right.
and then when we're going to do screens at night, we sit down and watch a movie together. Because I don't think that's as bad.
No,
Sitting down and watching
they
a movie
said
together.
literally, well, that's going to take us over to oxytocin.
That's right. Okay.
Okay. So the D part, very interesting, very important to read this book. I think any human who is in the digital world right now should not only read the book, but apply
Understand it.
the activities or the lack of activities it tells you to do. It tells you to basically go on a phone vacation at least a few times during the day or for a couple of days, right? But anyway.
Like we used to do with the phones that were in our kitchen.
Yes. Yeah. Read it in the book. Go get the book. But anyway, the O is the oxytocin, right? And the interesting thing about the oxytocin, and that's the relationship hormone, right? That's the hormone for all you women out there who are watching our show. Oxytocin is the hormone that will help you in your relationship with your spouse specifically. It is the relationship hormone, and it is the hormone that helps women find their way to orgasm, whether they can have one or not. It is legit a key piece to that. So this is not an X-rated show, but I'm just saying it's part of the body function, and oxytocin is hugely important. So here's something really awesome about oxytocin. I have friends who have often told me, and I watched last night on Netflix, and I highly recommend this show to anybody out there, the Eric Dane Last Words, right? He was the actor that passed away that was McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy. He had ALS. And one of the things he had mentioned in his Last Words interview, was that he had what I understand as imposter's syndrome, right? Which he was this gorgeous, unbelievable hunk of a man. He was out there, but he had zero self-confidence. He felt like he didn't deserve, no, he didn't feel like he deserved the life that he had. He felt, he'd had some traumatic events as a child. The death of his father was hugely traumatic, and that was placed on him by his mother, trying to tell him, be strong, be strong, be strong, be strong. Don't show your emotion.
You're the man of the house now.
Exactly. So that damaged him for the rest of his life, really, because he died young. But anyway, oxytocin, I was reading about oxytocin and then listening to this guy last night, and his father, and this can be an inherited kind of pattern to watch too. His father also felt that way and died by an unfortunate accident in a bathroom with a gun, which he claims is probably no accident, right? Because why would he be playing with a gun in a bathroom?
Yeah.
Just FYI. But I'm not going to spoil that show anymore for you. But oxytocin, I feel like what they were saying is when someone is dealing with low oxytocin levels, they will have a tendency to be depressed, to feel lonely in a crowded room, right? And a lot of people feel that way. And it's something that should not come with shame wrapped around them. It should come with an awareness of understanding that is not necessarily me. It's my hormones. Something's going on in my brain chemicals that's causing me to feel that way. So a lot of people just assume the identity of whatever they think and feel as that's them. But funny, we were talking about this before we sat down to film today about how the brain is perceiving things that a lot of times aren't even there, right? The filtering of all those things. So oxytocin is the touch hormone, the hormone that is only available human to human. And so we've lost a lot of that with technology. So people aren't talking to each other, hanging out with people they care about, touching each other. Massage. A lot of people don't like to be touched, but massage does stimulate oxytocin because it's human touch. It's very healing. So anyway, I'm in the O. I haven't gone to serotonin yet, but I will get there. I know enough just from my career and my education on serotonin. It's a very important neurochemical in the body. And then, of course, being a personal trainer, I know all about the E, which are the endorphins. And a lot of times they call those runner's high endorphins and things like that. But oh my God, the brain controls almost everything we do in this physical world, especially us doers, right? Tasks, lists, everything. That's all up here. I think it's like a big responsibility for us to learn about the function of the brain and about all those chemicals that control our thoughts, our feelings, right? So that we don't necessarily just claim them necessarily, because sometimes I tell people, just because you think that doesn't make it true.
It's
You
true.
know?
Well, I mean, there was a couple of episodes on Nova on PBS that were talking about this kind of brain chemistry stuff and basically saying that do you really have any control at all over what you think? Do you really have any is it real at all? I mean, it was pretty earth-shaking
I bet.
to watch it
Yeah.
because he was like, is anything really real? That's what my husband was saying.
Paradigm shift.
Yes.
It is
paradigm
it
shift.
creates a paradigm shift. And that's where I was talking about with your health. You don't have to really change Martha, right? You just have to change the perception from your own inside out of Martha after your incident with your heart, so that you are learning to, yes, I believe, especially people that have got a lot of self-confidence, right? Confidence and control oriented. Like, I've always been one to want to make sure my world is in a certain place. That's control, which is having an abundance of oxytocin
Right.
and dopamine, right? So I think that you can control the hormones, but it's kind of like life hacking, right? It's kind of like learning to create new habits. You got to do it for 3 months. You've got to do anything you're going to do that you want to change has to be applied for 3 months minimum. But there's scientific evidence. If you do something different and you do that for 3 months, it then becomes a habit. So thoughts and words, how you relay those thoughts, those things, if you really focus on those things for a period of time, like be in a stressful, be in the world, but not of it, right? Be in the world, be viewing a stressful situation, but learning how to get up on top of it. But it's through your thoughts and your perception, your perceived scenario on that. And if you can do that and consciously stay present to do it, because that's where you have to live. That's what my horses teach me, which is why I love horses so much. Animals, your dog will do that for you too. Animals don't live anywhere else but the present moment. And that's why they're so healing for human beings. But to be present and be able to start like actually understanding this is your brain. Those are your hormones. And the being that you are has the control over those. You just have to apply it. And if you're not being conscious, if you're too busy thinking about what's ahead of you, like all those tasks that we have to do in a day sometimes, and the phone and the scrolling, if we take ourselves out of that crossover point, then we're outside of that control factor, right? But if we step into it and go, nope, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to stay present. I'm going to look into your eyes and I'm going to look at the beautiful human that you are. I'm going to appreciate you and this opportunity in front of us. That pulls you into that place. And when you're in that place, it just feels so good. That's kind of the testing point. How do I feel right now? Sitting with somebody I care about, talking to the world about these wonderful things we're reading and how we're treating ourselves and, what we plan to do moving forward. Those are the things that create the signals, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin levels. All of those start normalizing. It's almost like God's like, where you been? I've been trying to get you there. I kicked you in the butt. Your body broke down. You got, you had this happen, but look at you now. You're right where I wanted you. And then he can talk to you and you can hear, it's kind of like prayer is when you're talking to God but the being still and the breathing and the, call it meditation or whatever, that's the listening to God. And that's when you hear those things. And so that's one of the reasons Dose was so important to me. The other book I read, and it was with my book club, which I really want you to read in your downtime. It's not political, it's not religious, it's just a sweet story by his first novel by a Georgia boy, Southern Georgia, but it's called Theo on Golden. And it is the most beautiful story of this stranger that comes into this small town called Golden in Georgia, in South Georgia, and how this man, old man, went into a coffee shop. He saw all these drawings, these beautiful drawings, portraits of people that lived in the town. He started buying the portraits, and he made it his mission to buy the portraits and hand them to the people that were drawn. And it's just a story of connection, a beautiful story of just, doing good things it was just a feel good story all the way around.
It was kind of a surprise story, right?
It was. And yes, it was. So you've heard of this book, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I was cleaning my kitchen at the end of the thing, just crying, ugly crying, but it wasn't sad cry. It was
Well, because
good
there was
story.
a book, those Christmas books that Richard Paul Evans wrote back in the 90s. You probably remember those. Those were like the kind of thing, he wrote it as a Christmas present to his family. And then there was like 20 copies from Kinko's that got passed around. And then they started growing from
took
that.
off.
And it
Oh,
ended
wow.
up being the largest fiction contract that I think it was Simon & Schuster or somebody like that had ever done. And it was such an interesting story because he came to Gainesville and we had him in the studio. And what was interesting about it is how much his life changed after this thing happened to him.
Wow.
Because, all of a sudden he was the rich guy,
Right.
Yeah.
And he went from a
regular
Kinko's.
opening. I mean, he worked for an advertising company, had a regular job, all that kind of
Right.
stuff, and how that changed for him. But these storybooks, were just great. It was a great level of storybooks. But yeah, I've heard about that book. I think I need to read it.
You really should. And I actually recommend the audio version because it's an older man who does the audiobook, and it really puts you in the character of Theo for the book. So that's a really good book. So that's a feel good book. We need that sometimes today.
Oh, I think
Doesn't have
definitely.
anything to do with anything other than just a beautiful story. But we have these buckets, right? We have our spiritual bucket, our educational bucket of things we like to read just to educate. Our like I did read the One a Day Bible for like 3 or 4 years straight. I don't know if you've ever seen that publication, but it does take different parts of the Bible each day and has you read a little bit from each part. So that helped me really to understand the Bible as a whole. I didn't read it. I read the whole Bible in a year. So it's a one a day for 365 days. So I have read the Bible over several different times, but not from the start to the finish. I've never done that. But there's segments of it that took root in my heart. So I can always quote something out of the Bible because it's there. It just stays in my heart. And then I've also found that I have been a great therapist to myself because I started journaling back when I was, before I was pregnant with my girls. I came I think I was probably in high school and I was journaling. But I have started picking up and reading some of my journals from a long time ago. And a lot of times I do that, what they call automatic writing.
Right.
Where you just clear your brain, put the pen to paper, and you just start writing. And I find now that some of the things that I said back, 10, 15, 20 years ago or more are helpful now because I would allow God to speak to me through those writings. That's what I call it, because I look back at them and go, did I write that? Wow, that's pretty wise. So I feel like it's God kind of working through me
Yeah, I'm trying to write my stories now,
I
write
think
my
you should.
stories down. And, I've got like old school diaries, that just have the normal things that, girls diary about.
Right.
But I've been writing kind of the family stories and trying to write them down. And it was very cathartic. I wrote some of the controversies down,
Mhm.
but then once I finished them, I got rid of them.
But it
You know what
helped.
I
You know
mean?
what that
Yeah,
did?
I-
That got
yeah.
with that stuff that
Yeah,
sticks
because
in
I
your
didn't want.
heart and your
It was not
muscles.
anything that I wanted anybody
Yep.
to come across.
But you got
You know
it
what I mean?
out.
But I got it out, and I told the story from my perspective,
Good.
and it was out there. But
That's healing.
but look, reading. I'm always reading. Like the 3 books we talked about, the one by Mark Richt, and then Stop in the Name of God, and then Unfettered. But I'm also always reading travel books because I'm always preparing for the next
Yes,
trip,
you are. Yep.
And I'm also usually have some kind of self-help book on my nightstand. And, they used to be about weight loss, but that's not my focus anymore, really. It's more about other kinds of health issues. And, but I try to keep books going all the time because I just love books.
You
I
should
just think
flip
they're great.
through the Greg Braden book I gave you called Wisdom Codes.
Yes.
He's taken a lot of scripture and kind of put it in a scientific and spiritual manner to which he interprets the
Yes.
language. And so it's very good to use as let me just see what's going to be told to me today.
Yeah, and I kind
Kind
of
of a
like
book.
that's one of the things I like really about YouVersion because a verse pops up every day and you don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
And
random.
and I also always have like a 365-day Bible plan going, but I don't. It usually takes me more than 365 days to do it. I mean, I miss a day here and
It's a
there. I
big
do
book.
whatever. But I think reading is really important. And to your point about the kind of eye-to-eye contact, I think is really important too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, here we are.
Here we are. So, what are you reading? We'd love to know in the comments what you're reading and what you're bringing apart here because life is really about experiences. I think we're going to hear a lot more about this dose stuff,
Yeah.
and also about how phones are impacting our lives.
Yes.
I mean, look, Apple, Google, anybody's making phones out there. I think y'all need to go back to making just phones. Phones that
just a flip phone.
just answer phone,
Hello.
answer calls, doesn't have any internet on
Right.
it, any of that kind of stuff, because I really think people have been overdosed.
Yeah.
And we've got to see what happens there. But we'd love for you to like and subscribe, follow us, be a part of this discussion. And every now and then we'll talk about the books. So put in the comments, the books you're reading.
Yeah. And please do share with your friends and family. If we ever talk about something you feel like somebody could really learn from, that's how our voice can get louder and louder because we do have a lot of wisdom to share. Please send it out to your friends, your family, people you care about. Help us to increase our viewership because we do want to keep doing this. Martha and I, we love what we do, and we do believe that your wellness deserves a little oversharing.